Hello. When I was a kid, there's a lot of things in demonstration within as the value that is positive, inherent as the value of negative value nature, inherent as the value of positive value nature. That is only um, negative value nature too. We're not in relationship to this value, with bodies of value, metaphysical value, our nature's value, in relationship to correlation as a correlation nature. Not just as, but with the identity in relationship as a value onto space's identity as the same nature of positive, but with our nature of identities expanding its value either positive or negative, forced from here when negative, lethal hadiths, which before that's a physical difference. It's a metaphysical difference. Not let be progressive value unto itself here, which is the phenomenon of the temporary, unique value of immediate space nature, Earth, which overall system is in demonstration to us, as it was to the ancients before. More than revelations, in the whole campus in Mercius and the internation sciences were criminally re-engineered. And so, there was three natures of Rome, with every physical body of value. For example, with the cell nucleus, the body of the cell, and the cell wall, connecting to the other cells, the identity of value shared by them, within as the sequence nature, as the value coming through as nature and as a value nature relationship to itself. And this is the Trinity. And this is also lethal hadiths, when it's not positive onto itself three ways together. That's correlation. And that correlation is realized with bodies of metaphysical value, because the inherent value of and as a semi-nature in relationship to the potential unchanging integrity of forever nature and diffusion through here is the bond to matter. This is with the three pluses and with the ancient snow people of correlation, of ratiocination are used to teach. The English was used to teach before criminal reengineering of internation sciences, consciously, not just of the identities of nations, but of only letting them realize as victim predator reaction natures, only capable of being so, or only realized areas engineering of our nature this way after, and then only let realize roles through the sciences internation already built as fake sides, roles as predatory sophistication, comparison nature. Only let realize agencies natures, branches natures. This was and is their motivations for sick laws with colonization, and with the as a breaching organized crime method before and beyond that. A long-term method that had the forced lies, the forced criminal insidious theater on everyone, including our extorted fact treatment nature, enslaved fact treatment nature founders, forced glorified in that position, even though we have the recorded proofs they didn't have the free speech till even after the Constitution Convention. This is why George Washington had to leave slavery entrenched in the North and blamed on other. That everyone was forced, consciously forced roles and built as a criminal insidiousness nature, blaming on other. I'm not a lawyer, not a criminal. We use ratiocination, reveals this, and only let realize motivated lie progression cover up nature's formal database illusion stacking and evidence rackets formal covering lie progressions only that realized, having means it needs to perpetually hide criminal intonation persuasions per fact treatments, and that's fact treatment nature. There's lie progression cover-up natures, also informally through areas, roles with this breaching method against each age of fact treatment nature distinctly together, group, and we're in a trap that was designed to keep all formal roles, including kings and queens, Oz, not in relationship to not understanding it, but not being able to understand a means through only that realized sciences, homeland roles, and foreign roles as fake, the same fake, abridged fact treatment natures, defending needing to hide lies, delusions, premises, with as homelands, fact treatment nature styles, and because of how we were built to an ulterior from natural value nature system. So there's no integrity to what claims rights and means to bombs and or to sanctions. In order to the integrity, none. With any only predatory litigation nature voices. As in some ancient times, since the criminal re-engineering of the campus market is here. Not just over revelations of our human nature with that, not just that naturally, but tactically. So everyone's a trick fact treatment. People try to say, try to describe proofs of this, recorded, and they get trick fact treatment nature responses because of, in other words, like saying it's that's not whatever. If this is natural, if it's happening, but it's a pseudo-natural because everyone's blocking correlation, which is using a radical of identity, not just ours, but the one it connects to, which is in demonstration to us. All exceptions are in demonstration that there's an identity of positive that is the subject of ratiocination, which is science, which doesn't use opinions. It uses only what is positive and trying to note inherently, actively, and progressively exceptions, because then you're understanding the identity of what is really positive, not just truths used to lie, which is what, and as in criminal insidious nature, which agencies are recorded of every nation, even our own, worse than without the sophistication to understand as predatory trick, litigation natures, experts of knowledge, not of life, not of real truth, not of real positive's identity, as an identity of value, as English was revealed to teach. So as a body of value, as a body of temporary value nature, it has the nature, the body of value inherent to it, that is always positive unto itself. Allah. In the predicate is always positive relationship to positive's identity. And this is used as a scientific means to explain, for example, how all parts of space and all parts of its systems, like the wind, for example, are manifest in relationship to its sequence nature that will only stay positive unto itself. Its identity. Space is identity. And will reveal, for example, that's why English is revealed to teach us with the alpha and the omega, the top of the Z and the bottom of the Z. The top of the Z is when being this identity onto space itself, its own system, which has exceptions for this reason, which wants us to think and understand through this method of communication sabotaged, because we need to be able to make overall statements and then show finite truths recorded. But when you do that, we're not being led, because it shows that what's pretended recorded is a form of corruption, originally state, internation, criminally influenced, fake, fake attached to real as a weapon, breaching nature roles. That's why how in our faces, not just all kinds of examples when we use ratiocination are found as extortion. The fact, cheaping nature, slavery is forced glorify, forced in relationship to only let realize, cultivated, breaching nature, victim predators with our areas through schools. Time used as a weapon against, with insights against, and with a method against each age of fact, cheaping nature. Each group forced with it. See, we have movements that move to groups because they're moving to react to what they get for a job value nature system that is originally and progressed uncharged, and how motivated to stay uncharged, and as cause negative value nature progressions in it blamed on other. Also simultaneously with our relationship to nature, forced tactically with colonization, slavery laws tactically denatured. And methodically, they set up, like for example, with Hartford, Connecticut, they had slavery. They built the homes and stuff like that, designed to then be made into 2-family, 3-family houses, water underground, denatured relationship to nature, original value nature system, original internation police, forced before and entrenched here before the birth of our founders. With George Washington and the French had the counter store right before the last battle of the Revolutionary War. Internation sciences. They were of a long-term breaching method using fact treatment nature. And agencies only let through this as victim predator comparison natures, as are only still standing, saying that jobs, holding up jobs and dreams to areas masked into uncharged colonization's traps for long term, which were built, were only let means, unfree market system, divided means, playing the game as is, only let broke, all victim predator roles. So, we need reliefs for people in the sequence nature, and we don't have they have to be with formal. At the same time, from formal roles, within us breaching nature, we have to admit this. All nations felt this. We last but two, and this is to stay internation. Staying what it only is capable of laying on other, and leaning on breach precedents, not by accident, leaning on internation sciences. Interscience obfuscations of themselves, of their own, of their identity of value, of correlation, of needs for people to be able to not be claimed making conspiracies to demonstrate recorded reality, but everyone pretending they don't understand. We have formal predators. And by the way, I mentioned someone recorded tied to Hartford Hospital and other places associated with those call lines where the people call for suicide. I never called. I never told anyone. I never had any inclination to commit suicide or anything like that. And that it is recorded and confessed, tied to evidence, just brackets, intercity, and worse than intercity, but systemically through Hartford originally and state, and progressed. This is inter-military. This is with the VA problems, too, because it's inter-branch, and it's inter-nation police in relationship to the areas racket against all ages of fact-cheaping nature, all groups of, all stages of sequence nature, in relation to database and fact-cheaping handling, that then causes lie progression cover-up nature is only let realized formally. This cultivates the kids of regular workers, people who don't have time to rely on breaching nature roles, campuses. It forces also even our highest leaders, like senators, cultivates them as live progression covering of natures, trick fact treatment natures, or cheap fact treatment, bridge fact treatment natures, and that's roles all these different styles for leaning on justices that were and are originally stayed progressed, engineered as a criminal insidious nature, cover-up nature and roles, as fact treatment nature, incapable of speaking for morality or understanding it because they've already been progressed, cultivated to database solution stacking roles, personally misprision, and as forced by top down by all nations shared, playing the game as is broke, so as breaching nature, fact treatment natures, and where it's critical too in relationship to bombs, not just nuclear weapons, everything's like chemical threats, not just that, not the infrastructure we're in as a fact treatment nature. At the same time, with the trap we were set in to be broke, just like the Civil War was engineered to be broke to stay functional to the furtherance of what is the long-term fact treatment nature breaching method, having it juxtaposed to all areas. So this isn't just about internation police needing to be juxtaposed here with internation, with the evolution of the pathology that is negative value nature progression, of the nature of nations trying to adapt to wars and to divisions as comparison natures, not sharing, not as correlation nature. And so with and as natures that can't help but fill in what it needs to be blaming on everything else before. In other words, perpetual tool nations in to all areas. There's no justifications for what they call poverty as a fact treatment racket. All victim present laws, tools, live progression, cover-up natures. Call it, because we're fact treatment, we're calling we're containing it what it's way worse than. In order it's a torture in relationship to original and progress recorded on charge, database relationships, criminal, to fact treatment natures, uses of them, insidious, multi-front, because that's what you do when you're taking the only time out of a kid who has no nature, no natural relationship to nature, and then you group them and play the game like a little job, and everyone's gonna divide and lean on an expert and not use correlation, which is interscience. The sciences share an identity. They share in our sequence nature. We share obligations to forsaken fronts and impositions. Think about every single person is tortured just by the excessive torture, especially on young people, and that progress. So especially in old people at the same time. Fact treatment nature is uncharged with the tactics that use that as a trick, worse than the people hurt by it using the words like that are prejudicial or whatever, and worse, and by the insidiousness fronts too, just needing to keep everything blamed on other, to keep everyone lean on, have a nature of what is the biggest part of the problem, settles disputes instead of having disputes allowed in sequence, the original progressed recorded database and evidences rackets formal and overtly gangland juxtaposed with internation police overtly gangland, with medical corruption overtly internation corrupt gangland, and defenses of that with as the only natures intermilitary internation, breaching nature roles as a fake patriotisms, all natures, all modern nations. Fubu League, tribe, free native means from locked below the streets. See, that's why the New York game and the Hartford game work together, because it's also a process. We're gonna learn how to do it in relationship to the real algorithm, which uses what's underground with the water, and we lift it, and uses uses means that we have right here, forsaken, and we admit this the bottom, and then the lock everything in where it stays like that, and then there are means right there, clear means to use positives for change, because that's how you do it. When you're looking for positives identity as it, you find it. You find it. When you're just looking for temporary positive in relationship to the theater, as the criminal and serious nature of theater, as fact treatments are told, like your action is supposed to be sanctions. Your action is supposed to be play like there's integrity when there's not. That's a negative value nature progression. That's part of the cause. In other words, so that's why the president is right to use Twitter or whatever to get, because he's asking the news. I've asked the news to correct their lies. They're recorded and confessed, and are progressed in relationship to inherent active and progressive intercity and Weathersfield interbranch medical corruption recorded with the schools, database crimes, database illusion stacking against innocent people with areas and with courts, and with a minority of people one-way reports. So when I was a kid, there was a person I never called. Every once in a while, he used to show up with people. He used to show up to me and tied to my neighbor, Justin Kavinskis. Said he's asked, KKK. Also recorded and involved with database rackets with schools and with some child predators, with some KKK-themed rape threats, and tied to some untimely deaths, and all kinds of confessions in juxtaposed natures of verbal and other database. What I'm talking about with Trinity College, with untimely death over there, tied to a stranger with a confession verified online, all kinds of things verified online that were affected confessions to me from people connected to a detective involved with the abuses of the children recorded, and with the court, and with other police forms, other different police forms, military police forms, various recorded ties to FBI corruption, a co-defendant of federal criminals that used to sell drugs to these kids when they were young, these adults when they were young, a former standing chairperson on RICO law, director of the FBI, Robert Luskin. He was a co-defendant with federal criminals associated with drug dealing with kids, and had a daughter in my grade involved with this, and with database crimes and evidences crimes through the kids, recorded, sabotaged, not letting kids tell it, in relationship to evidences rackets, with psychologists, and with psychology tied to all the sciences, and tied to the databases with the schools, tied to medical corruption with the hospitals, with the VA, with their mixture with the regular Hartford Hospital, other area hospitals and police, with database crimes, evidences rackets, and with doctors, jails too, and with online policing also recorded and involved facilitating and covering up in Sandy Hook crimes with other, if that was made up or real, I don't know anything about it, but they're really recorded, involved, covering their own database crimes online, and with areas, and with their areas crimes, and with campuses crimes with other child predators that before they were even prisoners in a prison. Those doctors and those police forms associated with Sandy Hook, and with the fire departments, and with Weathersfield, the fire department. So, let's go. We need a place to demonstrate when this is why we also need, because there's also recorded proofs that they're sabotaging what Latin rights are for. Like, in other words, if you were wrongfully convicted, you have to sue from prison. It's also, with time, is one of many worst torture form of sick natures. This is originally. So now we need we need a place where people can demonstrate right away when they make mistakes. See, they're also attaching people to fake body language, fake sequences, because they're covering up their roles with live progressions with areas that not for reasons they're telling, because they're hurting innocent people. They're forcing sustained abuses of fact treatments, natures that are not their own family, as tool breaching nature, then have to cover that up. That's how they were cultivated to motivations for this recorded as adults now, as predators into branch, and with the campuses, with the investigators, like with Heather Hansen, with Joe Lombardo, and Lombardo, Joe Aiello. This is all recorded. Whether it's for police, they keep sequence shifting, switching names. They're recorded aware of that, fabricating evidences, and tied to rape threats online. So then they make subjects that no one wants to talk about and won't listen, while they're sustaining child abuses, while they're sustaining recorded roles with elderly crimes, elderly home crimes. These aren't normal standards. These are criminally influenced standards and justifications of them. And what's doing that is standing live progression cover-up nature. And what's doing that is also with areas original and progressed, ulterior exploitations as that nature, as ours too. So then it has to cover up roles with the worst things it doesn't understand, like all that with the Trade Center, with them recorded forging names, and with doctors and with military corruption, where they have pretended witnesses, fake conversations about witnesses from the 9/11 context next to the Trade Center, in relationship to the court, also tied to federal criminals from my area who were co-defendants of a former director of the FBI in the Ninth Circuit next to the Trade Center in that context. Also tied to Connecticut sequence shifts in courts, database solution stacking, leading up to that, and since in tied ways, recorded, confessed. So we know while they keep saying people are making allegations, to not let people say these overall things and then show the recorded proofs and talk about the recorded proofs. And that's the finite proofs with the overall together, and